Hi, I'm Annie Lathede, and I'm committed to Middlebury College in Vermont. Going back to when I decided to start being tutored, I think the main issue was that while I was pleased with where my grades were at and I was pleased with all the extracurriculars I was doing and how everything was going, my one weakness was test taking. And I feel like it can be really hard for people to sit down and say, okay, let me pour all my effort into this one test for 3 hours, and this is gonna decide, potentially a huge part of my future. And I think that was scary for me because it was difficult for me. So I decided to look into tutoring at Summit Prep. In the beginning, when I couldn't drive, my parents would drive me over to the building and I'd walk in. I remember if you sit on the couches, they're very comfortable, but they have all these pennants from all the schools that kids have attended on the wall. And it was always fun to look at those and just kind of think about, okay, this could be me in a couple of years. Maybe I'll be going to one of those schools. And then David would kind of swing around the corner and he'd say hi and we'd talk about our week. And I think that the reason I wanted to stay tutoring at Summit Prep is because it's such an exciting and kind of welcoming environment. I often had to be tutored pretty late at night, so I might be finishing up at Summit Prep at like 10:30 p.m. I'm like dead tired, like a zombie, like walking out of the office. But because of how engaging everyone at the office was and how engaging David was, I believe I was able to put out my best work and stay focused. And I think that the kind of person-to-person relationships that I was able to build from the get-go made it a really special experience. So in terms of how the tutors were, the only tutor I can speak to is David because he's the only person I worked with, but he was just super friendly and personable. I think something that David was able to do to cater to my needs was this sounds dumb, but not make me feel stupid. He always made me feel like he was at the same level as I was, and even though he had the information and could help me walk through a problem, he was able to understand why I was confused and why something like that was difficult for me. And I think by kind of becoming more at my level, it made the environment more open and welcoming and made me less afraid to make mistakes. I think Summit Prep helped me more than just with the ACT and with my scores. I think they helped overall in terms of confidence when I sit down to take any test. I'm able to kind of sit back, take a little bit of a breath. First off, realize it's not the end of the world, whatever the outcome is. In the end, it ended up being a 9-point increase on my ACT score or something like that. It was insane. I think when we first met with David, he said that some kids can get up to 6 points, 7 points, whatever. So I was really, really pleased with the result overall. My acceptance into Middlebury, I remember very fondly. I didn't sleep at all the night before. I think I woke up at 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m., but I knew it was coming out at 8 a.m. So I told my parents, can you guys just stay downstairs? I'm gonna be up in my room and I'll come down when I'm ready or with whatever news. I just tried to close my eyes and relax. And then when I logged onto my computer, my fingers were totally shaking. I could barely remember my password. I was all over the place. You sort of had to train your eyes to look right for the Dear Annie, and whether it was congratulations or we regret to inform you or whatever it was, my eyes went right there. And it said, I think it was, Dear Annie, we are pleased to, and I didn't see the congratulations right away. So I was like, oh, bummer, I've been waitlisted or something. But then snowflakes started to come on the screen and I looked up and the huge banner at the top of the website just said congratulations, and I had totally not even seen that. And I just sort of started to cry, and then I pulled myself together. But this was probably 8:15, so my parents had thought that I hadn't gotten in because they hadn't heard screams or anything. And I looked at my phone and I had gotten a text from my brother and it said, remember, we expect you to tell us good news or bad, right? I was like, oh great, they all think I didn't get in. But I went downstairs and my mom looked at me, she was like, oh sweetie. I was like, I'm going to Middlebury. I am so thrilled to be spending the next 4 years at Middlebury. I think it is the perfect place for me to spend my college years. And I honestly think that without the help and the tutoring, in terms of scores, but in terms of just learning more about myself and how I go about working toward goals, Summit Prep 100% helped me to get there. I think it was a hallmark of my high school career. And I'm just really pleased to have taken part in that process and watched myself grow, watched my scores grow, watched my confidence grow, and just kind of like everything around me sort of felt like it was falling into place. I'm Annie Lafitte, and we are Summit Prep.